Good morning and welcome to the GENEDRIVE PLC full-year results investor presentation. Throughout this recorded presentation, investors will be in listen-only mode. Questions are encouraged and can be submitted at any time using the Q&A tab situated on the right-hand corner of your screen. Simply type in your questions and press send. The company may not be in a position to answer every question it receives during the meeting itself. However, the company can review all questions submitted today and publish responses where it is appropriate to do so. Before we begin, I would like to submit the following poll. And I would now like to hand you over to CEO James Cheek. Good morning to you.
Good morning, and good morning, everybody. This is my first one as the new CEO, so just to go through a brief introduction of myself. We're joined by Russell, Chief Financial Officer. We're not joined by Gino, but Gino is the new member of the exec team as a scientific officer, and very much part of the drive for us and being able to bring new technologies to the marketplace. So just a brief introduction about why have I come on board. The board were very clear that they wanted to really commercialize the products that we had, and that's where I've come into. So what I'm going to do is going to give you a brief understanding of what I've been working on for the last 2.5 months since I've joined. I'm also going to start off by just giving you a bit of a view of the direction of the company that I now wanted to take. And then we'll talk a little bit more about the commercialization of things a bit later. So just to start off, who are we? A lot of people should know who we are, but we're really there for a low cost, rapid molecular device that can do lots of things in an emergency setting. So really for rapid delivery of actionable tests. Now, we're really going to be concentrating on, the genetic information and how genetics can be used to really support the healthcare industry. We developed the first, obviously, pharmacogenetic test to avoid antibiotic hearing loss that you'll know about, the mtRNA1 product. And then we've started to work on our second product, which is CYP2C19, which is really around making sure clopidogrel treatment is actually effective for ischemic stroke patients. If you don't understand what that means, just to give you a brief understanding, clopidogrel is known as a dormant medicine or dormant treatment, and it becomes active once it interacts in the liver. So you need to be able to metabolize that particular product to make it effective for you. So really what we're looking at is, do you genetically able to metabolize that product or not, that makes it effective or not effective for you? So I just wanted to say that why pharmacogenetics? So really wanting to pivot the company towards pharmacogenetics and away from infectious diseases. You might want to ask, why are we trying to steer away from infectious diseases? Well, my understanding of the marketplace is it's fairly flooded. You've got a lot of players in there and a lot of people that are already in that marketplace. So unless you can really do something incredibly different, it's very difficult to break into that market and to sell. And it's really dominated by quite a lot of big players. So you've got to come up with something more or less exceptional. However, we've already proved ourselves in that pharmacogenetics marketplace by bringing the first point-of-care product for hearing loss, for antibiotic-induced hearing loss. So we know that that's our strength. So really then trying to work on, well, if we've already done this in one place, can we do it in others? So really trying to look at and explain what pharmacogenetics really is. It's really looking at medications and how genes can affect those medications being effective or not effective with patients. And then it comes down to the fact that you have adverse drug reactions. So if you have a specific gene variation, you can have an adverse drug reaction to that particular medicine. Now, if you look at the data that's available, you can see that about 30% of those adverse drug reactions can be impacted by pharmacokinetic testing. So there's a fair size of market there if you think 30% of all adverse drug reactions we can be effective on. So what does that mean from purely a numbers point of view? So we know that about 15% of inpatients in hospitals in the UK actually have an adverse drug reaction while they're in hospital. And that leads to about 8,000 overnight extra stays per year for the NHS. We also know that about 16.5% of UK admissions are specifically related to adverse drug reactions. And then we know that 30% of all those adverse drug reactions can be affected by pharmacogenetics testing. So we know we have a marketplace for this. So what does it look like from a numbers point of view? Well, we know that the data that we get from the NHS shows that about 2.2 billion is the impact cost for adverse drug reactions. Obviously, you have obesity and smoking as the biggest impact, and adverse drug reactions are impacting them by about 2.2 billion. We know we could impact about 30% of that, and that then comes to about a total market impact that we can affect for the NHS of about £660 million. So it's attractive for the NHS to be looking at this and to work with us on this going forward. So we're going to talk about the MTRNO1 product. But before I do, I suppose the big question a lot of people are going to ask is, what are you doing with regards to your commercialization? And why haven't you sold this product specifically heavily within the UK and the NHS and more broadly abroad? So I'm going to just touch on that and what I've understood and what I've uncovered since I've been here. So if you look at abroad, first of all, you'll see that we signed up quite a number of distributors in Europe and at a wider abroad worldwide. What you won't know is the fact that we didn't have any of the product available in local languages until I came aboard and we brought it out in the last month. So in the last month, these particular countries now have a product they can actually sell because it's in their local language. The software is in their local language, and the actual materials, training materials, are all in local languages. So they can now start to sell these. So we are expecting to start to see orders come in December for these products. In the fact that you haven't seen anything to date, is reason why is purely because they couldn't sell them, because they couldn't actually sell them, because they didn't have the product in their local language. Now they do, and we're expected to see that take off. So now we're going to look at the NHS. And I think what I'm going to do is come back and talk to you about an experience I had when I was at Roche. So when I was at Roche brought out a brand new test for preeclampsia. So the previous patient pathway for a patient with preeclampsia or suspected preeclampsia was a midwife would do a blood test. If would do a sort of a blood pressure test. If the blood pressure was high and it looked like they had hypertension, that particular patient would then be brought into hospital, stay overnight, constantly bled to check their vitals to see if it was preeclampsia or not. What Roche did is they actually produced a test, so a single test that could identify straight away whether the patient had preeclampsia or not. So it meant that the fact that they didn't have to bring the patient into hospital, so it improved the patient pathway straight away. What Roche did is they went and spoke to the hospitals and said, look, we have this great test, do you want it? And they said, look, this is brilliant, because actually then we don't have to bring patients in overnight. It saves money on overnight stays. It's really brilliant. Yes, we absolutely want it, but actually we don't pay for the testing. The testing is paid for by the CCGs at the time. Go and talk to the CCGs. So we went and talked to the CCGs and explained the test. And they said, this is brilliant. We want it because our maternity services are on their knees and anything that's going to free up the midwives is something we want. So yes, we want it, but we're not going to pay for it. because we already pay the trusts a big lump of money to do that testing for us, and we expect them to be able to do it with the amount of money we're already paying them. And so we went round the loop for 4 years. So for 4 years, they didn't sell the product into the NHS, even though it was wanted, and it didn't sell until they got specialist commissioning for the product. What I've noticed is that GENEDRIVE have been more or less going down the same rabbit hole. Let's talk to the clinicians. Let's convince them that this is a great product and they'll want it and they'll buy it. No one has been talking to anybody that actually has control of budgets. So the first thing that I did when I came on board was start to talk to people about specialist commissioning first off. Let's get that done before anything else. So I've had conversations with people like Sue Hill, who's the Chief Scientific Officer for NHSE, and other people like Alex McLaughlin, who's a Deputy Director for Innovation at the Office of Life Science, and really started to work on those guys to convince them that we need specialist commissioning for this product sooner rather than later. So I think there is now an acceptance that specialist commissioning will happen for this product. The next bit for me is to push it to happen sooner rather than later, and that's the bit that I'm working on now. The next part is the fact that we have what was the academic health science networks, which were set up deliberately to bring innovation into the NHS. They're now called different health innovation networks. And they really have funding and are able to support bringing these products to the marketplace. Now, we've done a lot of work with Manchester, and they've been incredibly helpful and have funded the product and how we bring it to market in Manchester. But there are several other of these around the country, including Scotland and including Wales. No one has been talking to these guys. So the first thing, again, that I did was start to open a dialogue with all of the different health innovation network partners around the country to start to get them to really look at our products, see what they could do, where could we work together, what funding could be available, what support they could give us. And that's where we are at the moment. We're in the first throes of that, because that's, as I said, only been here 2.5 months, been really pushed on that, and we're really starting to see some commercial traction starting to happen, and people wanting to talk to us about how they can work with us to get this product available in their networks. So some brilliant forward movement there. So in a nutshell, I think really the concentration of the organization has been a little bit off, and now that focus has been brought much more forward, talking to the right people, trying to make sure we get to people which is talking about budgets and funding rather than the clinical experts, and then making sure that we actually give the right product to our distributors abroad so they can sell it for us. So a big move forward with that. So again, we need to look at what are the numbers here with regards to the MTNR on one product. We know we have a total addressable market of about 100 million. And I believe that we're now starting to move things forward in those areas. And things are starting to happen. We've got a good, positive case. And we believe that we are, really set in a great place to really open up that market, because there's nothing else. And I mean, absolutely nothing else out there that can really do what we do. One of my focuses on here is going to be the US. You'll know that there's been some discussions in the past about FDA. I've had a lot of time talking to different partners and different people about trying to find the right kind of combination of partners for us for the launch in the US. It can be very expensive to bring a product to the US with FDA approval. And I really want to concentrate on making sure we have the right partners for us so that we can do this in a cost-effective way, but also a quick way to market. We've had some great discussions with the FDA, and they're incredibly supportive of what we want to do. So really all we're at the stage now is just making sure we finalise the contracts and the deals that we've got with those partners so we can then move that forward. And I hope to be able to bring you some more news on that as soon as I can, hopefully towards the end of this year, beginning of next year. So now we come to the CYP2C19 product. So I'm going to touch first of all on the marketplace, so you can see the total addressable market. So again, a much bigger market than we had for the mtRNA1 product. This really is something I feel could really drive our business forward. We have approval for the UK. We've done a lot of work with Manchester, and we will have Manchester starting to test using this product towards the end of this year, beginning of next year. We're also then looking to see how can we roll that out across the UK, and really again starting to talk to that health innovation network around how can they support us to bring this product to market. Now, things are a little bit different for this product because we've just spent the last year and a bit talking to clinicians in neonatal area, and now we need to talk to clinicians in the stroke area. So we do need to bring this to different people. But again, my focus is on the money. My focus is on who has the budgets and where can we secure money for this particular test in the UK. We're then going to look at bringing this product into other countries, specifically into Europe, first of all, as we then move across. There's some work to do with regards to making sure that we have the right regulatory approvals. But I'm also going to think about, can we access Europe by making this product available as a research-only product? Because I think there are customers out there that would be interested in it as a research-only product, so we can sell it before we have the regulatory approval. And we can also start to seed the market about this product. This product does have a competitor in the marketplace, not necessarily point of care, but their actual product isn't anywhere near as good as ours, and is often not seen as a proper point of care product because it has to have things like the reagents have to be all frozen, and there's certain elements that you have to do which really does limit its capability in a point of care place. But we are absolutely set to smash this market, and I'm really looking forward to really pushing this forward. The one thing about this particular product, as I said, it's around about the metabolism of clopidogrel. And someone did say to me and asked me a question and said, why would somebody spend 120 quid to get tested for a product that maybe costs less than £120? Well, you have the effort, the fact that the impact on stroke. So you've got stroke patients that could be given medicine that's not doing them any good at all. But actually, there's a recent study that you can all access and have a look at, June 2023 in the US, where they looked at what the financial impact was of hospitalization for adverse drug effects for clopidogrel specifically. And they looked and estimated that the actual cost is somewhere between 8,000 and 20,000 per patient. So there is a good reason for doing this test, and a specific reason around trying to save money for the health systems. But it also brings great contributions to patient safety and patient health and patient pathways by being able to make sure that whatever medicines you give to the patient are actually effective. I'm now going to hand over to Ross to talk about the financial summary, but hopefully I've given you a bit of a steer on the directions of the company and what I've been doing in the last 2.5 months. And I'll come back to a bit of a news flow a bit later on. So Ross, are you happy to take over from here?
Yeah, thanks, James. Good morning, everyone. I just have a couple of slides summarising the financials for the year. Revenue was 55,000, which we saw the very early stages of commercial traction with the RNR1 test now in routine use in the NHS. The R&D costs of 3.9 million are consistent with last year, and that was a heavy focus on the CYP2C19 product development. Admin costs have been reduced by 400,000 to 1.4 million as we continue to manage the costs tightly. There was a finance cost in the year of 800,000, 700,000 of which was a non-cash fair value adjustment. The R&D tax credit is 800,000, and that's reflective of the reduction in the tax relief rates. So that results in a loss for the year of 5.2 million. Moving on to cash flow, the operating loss before changes in working capital is 4.9 million, and that's 500,000 less than the prior year, as we see the benefit of the reduction in overheads. Working capital movements are also 500,000 favourable when compared to the prior year, and that's largely down to reduced expenditure on stock and materials. A 1 million R&D tax refund was received in March of this year, and we received gross proceeds from investors of 2.3 million in the year. So a net cash outflow of 2 million gave us a cash position of 2.6 million at the year end. And to give an update on the post-year end cash position, on the 23rd of November, we had 1 million of cash, and we're expecting a 300,000 proceeds from a drawdown in the coming days. This is in line with our monthly burn rate, which is just over 400,000, which is adjusted to 327,000 when you factor in the R&D tax refund. Okay, thank you. That concludes the financial summary. I'll hand back over to James, who can talk you through the expected news flow.
Thank you, Ross. Appreciated. So let's have a look at the news flow for us. In the near term, we're going to be looking at the revenues of the go live sites in the UK and abroad. So as I've said to you, we expect to get some income from the sites abroad now that they have a product that they can actually provide to their end customers. We also have other sites in the UK which we know are due to go live soon, and I hope to be able to update you on those in the very, very near future. There are sites outside of Manchester that we've progressed with. I can't say too much at the moment, but as I said, I think it'll be in the very, very near future we can advise of others that have gone live. And I know that the work we've done, as I said, with the innovation network is really starting to bear some fruit. Again, as I said, I've only been here 2.5 months. It's been very difficult to get things done in a very, very quick way. But all I'd say to you is there really is traction there. And the fact that we're talking to these guys and they want to talk to us about funding opportunities and how they can get these products into their different regions is much better than I've seen movement previously, looking at all the details from before. I'm going to continue with my progression around that special commissioning. As I said, I've pretty much now got absolute 100% clarity that it's happening. But my big driver now is to make sure this happens as quickly as possible. And I will continue to lobby and press and chase and harry the people that are the decision makers around that. We've got a great place, as I said, with regards to the FDA registration. Again, I can't talk to you about it until all of the I's are dotted and the T's are crossed. We have what I believe some great partners that are going to help us get that product into the US and support us really getting that registration. So the fact is, let's be honest, it's very expensive to bring products into the US with FDA registration. You know, the partners that I think we've got lined up are going to be able to help us do that in a very cost-effective way. And again, I'd like to bring you more information on that as soon as I possibly can. As I said, I can't until everything's all cleared, all the contracts are completed and signed. As you know, and it's been talked about quite a few times around the fact that there's work going on with NICE around gathering further data for the full recommendation of MT-RNO1. I'm going to say to you that the EVA process that we had with NICE has been both a blessing and a curse from my viewpoint. A blessing in the fact that we can actually talk about it, which is great. A curse in the fact that the EVA process is not fully formed within NICE. We're one of the first companies to go through it. And unfortunately, everything's getting very much delayed while they try to work out the next stage of the process. So things should have happened earlier on in the year, I think end of September, beginning of October. And now things have been pushed out until January. I continue to push on that. And it's also one of the things that I did discuss with Alex McLaughlin in the Office of Life Science, who really is one of the main drivers around that particular process and the communication with NICE, around the fact that actually the EVA process hasn't really been that helpful for us. And what can he do to help us and push us forward with that? But we'll continue to go on that, because getting the full recommendation really ties down trust to have to use the test, and that doesn't give them any kind of out to not use it. There's also the NICE review for the CYP2C19 product, which again is delayed. The reason it was delayed is because they're going back to review again the data. Has nothing to do with us, has nothing to do with anything that we've put forward. It's just the general review of the whole of the project around that CYP2C19. And we're really, again, hoping to get the information coming out in January, which should recommend our product. We're going to commence the testing with Manchester Royal Infirmary for the CYP2C19, and that has the potential, if we can get that taken up across the whole of that Manchester network, to really be quite sizable. That'll be a number of instruments and a number of tests, far greater than we would have with the MT-RNR1 product. And we've got real hope for that, because we really believe we've got the right product for the right market. The next is around the continuation of the design of the instrumentation. I would like to be able to look at other types of tests, much more complex, much more, let's say, needing more or several different targets. And to be able to do that, we need to really work on the instrument. The instrument itself is very good, does what it says on the tin, but actually, we can improve on that. And I really want to concentrate on how we get that instrument designed better and able to perform different types of tests for us. We will be coming for future funding activities. Let's be clear about that. But those funding activities are really to support us to get that FDA approval over the line and for product development. I genuinely believe there's real proper commercial traction. We really won't be coming for funding for hairy-fairy stuff or around predicting or getting sort of product development. This is really going to be talking about funding to really commercialize and push forward what we've got. And that starts, as I said, with that FDA approval. Then if we look at the medium to long term, we're going to be working on that commercial, to commence for the IVDR registration for CYP2C19 so we can sell it into Europe. That will commence early next year. We'll have the launch of that product in the territories that we get the registration for, and also look to push it into other territories around the globe. We will then, as I said, hopefully have commenced the FDA registration for the MT-RNR1 product, and hopefully get a big slice of that US market, which looks quite profitable for us. And then, as I said, with the design of the instrumentation, we can then start to look at a pipeline for multiple target tests, which takes us into a different place altogether. So, in summary, what is the issue, or what is the main thing from myself? I think we've got great commercial traction for MT-RNR1, both UK and abroad. I understand people's skepticism around this, by seeing what might have happened in the past, but I can say there's a real focus now within the company, and there's a real change in the discussions we're having and in the messaging that we're having. Things are going to be very, very different to before, and hopefully you've seen from the presentation today around the fact that we're really trying to pivot the company in a different direction. But I'm also trying to make sure everybody's focused on the commercial aspects of the products that we've got. So if there's anything in the project plan that we've got that's going to help us from a commercialization process, that goes to the top of the tree. And that's where we move things forward. Hence, as I said, around the languages for the products abroad. And we're going to continue to push on all of the elements that are going to help us with that commercial traction. There is real clinical and commercial interest in that CYP2C19 product, both in and outside the UK. And as I said to you, to the point of fact that even without the registration for the IVDR, I'm fairly sure that I can start to sell the product into Europe as a research-only product because of the fact of the interest that's there. And I'm really, really quite excited about where that can take us. You know, we're first to market with those unique point-of-care pharmacogenetic testing. There's nobody out there really doing what we do, and we really want to play on that fact and build on it as well. You know, it is a unique place for us to be, and it's getting interest out there for what we do. And then lastly, as I said, there is going to be investment required, but it's really going to be required for that growth capital to support the sales strategy. That's what I need the money for in the future, to really, really deliver on all of the things that I have in the plan for that commercialization. I hope that's clear for everybody. I'm now just going to pass that back and hopefully look at answering some of the questions that have come through.
Perfect, James, Ross. Thank you very much indeed for your presentation this morning. Ladies and gentlemen, please do continue to submit your questions using the Q&A tab situated on the top right corner of your screen. While the company take a few moments to review those questions submitted today, I would like to remind you that a recording of this presentation, along with a copy of the slides and the published Q&A, can be accessed via our investor dashboard. James, Ross, we did receive a number of pre-submitted questions for investors, and I wanted to start off the Q&A session with these. The first one reads as follows: how do you see GENEDRIVE technological advantage being maintained or even strengthened in the light of AI-enabled disruption across medical diagnostics? Do you see AI as a threat? And if not, why not? If so, how do you manage the threat, and over what time frame do you see that threat emerging?
It's a really interesting question, because we are starting to see some real movement and developments in artificial intelligence, or I prefer to call it more machine learning. From what I've actually seen, is more akin to machine learning than actual artificial intelligence. I think if you look at from a medical point of view, there's a lot of challenges for this. There's a lot of external validation that needs to be done. Data exchange and privacy, and also implementation logistics, sort of remain the main obstacles. Also, if you look at where we are positioned in the point of care market, you haven't really seen anything coming through in the point of care market with regards to machine learning or AI. And a lot of this is because, you know, there are the regulatory requirements for this really depend on the risk associated with the medical product that it's aligned to, and a lot of the sort of requirements or regulatory requirements are still being very much developed for this, you know, for machine learning AI products. So, do I see it in the short term? No, I don't necessarily think there is a challenge for us in our marketplace. Do I expect that things to rise and you know, around, specifically around sort of informed information for clinicians? Yes, I absolutely do. Probably not here yet. I think in the point of care market, it's probably more likely going to be things like dose, where you're looking at sort of specific dose information. You know, how do you dose a patient in a point of care setting, and the data that can be provided to help support that kind of dosage stuff. For at the moment, no. There is going to be potential use for us, you know, with things like big data and so on, around developing products. So I definitely think that it could be useful for us in developing products in the future. But as of today, I don't necessarily see it as a threat in our particular marketplace.
Perfect, James. And the next question reads as follows. Why did the company sign a UK and ROI distribution agreement with Inspiration Healthcare PLC if it focuses on national adoption into NHS England? Will commissions still be payable to Inspiration Healthcare PLC if the NHS adopted the test nationally?
Okay, so it's an interesting question. And what I'll say is, firstly, that everything is still on the table with regards to the commercialization. So nothing is off the table, and I'm still looking at a lot of things. Inspiration have been absolutely brilliant for us in getting us to access to the neonatologists and helping us win that clinical argument. I think the reality is that clinical argument has now been won, and we now need to look at having different discussions with different people in the NHS. I think when it comes to Inspiration Healthcare, who are a distributor, we need to understand whether they are able to come with us and have those different discussions. Because as I said, you need to have, it's a different place. So if I'm selling an incubator, there's budgets already available for incubators in the NHS, either maintaining or replacing, and accessing those budgets is fairly straightforward. When you're bringing something completely new, there is no budget for it, and you've got to create something that delivers a budget. And it's a different discussion, it's a different conversation with different people. I think where we are at the moment is just understanding whether our distributor is able to come with us and have those discussions or not. And then obviously that then filters down to, around the income part for the, if we get the specialist commissioning, why they're still our distributor in the UK. So again, everything's really still to be discussed and reviewed from a commercial point of view. But hopefully for us, I'm still more concentrating on trying to get that specialist commissioning through, because that's where things change a big place for us. Sorry, bit of a convoluted answer to the question, but hopefully answered it for you.
Perfect. Is the company exploring other hospital medical research partnerships in the UK, US, or around the world, alongside its successful relationship with NHS in Manchester, England?
There's a very short answer to that, which is yes, absolutely. We have been, we have had a really successful partnership with Manchester. Let's be clear there. The genetic guy, the geneticists there have really worked with us, and we've done some great stuff. Am I tied to them? No. Will I look at other opportunities? Yes. Now we're in this pharmacogenetics marketplace. The logic would say that we could start talking to pharmaceutical companies about how we could actually tie up with those, because let's be honest, we're talking about adverse drug reactions. So there is a real clear affinity with what we want to do and potentially with what drugs may be coming forward in the marketplace. So yes, it's a simple answer. Have I got anything concrete I can give to you at this moment in time? No, but we are very much wanting to do that going forward.
That's great. Thank you very much for that. And James, we have also received a number of live questions, and if I may now hand back to you to address those, give responses where appropriate to do so, and I will pick up from you at the end.
Okay. If you can give me just 2 seconds just to have a look at some of these. One of the questions is, can we roll out AIHL test in any hospitals in the UK outside Manchester? If so, when? I did allude to the fact earlier that we have moved things forward with other hospitals. I would hope to be able to bring you some good news on that very, very shortly. So in answer, yes, we can, and we have, and you will set to hear about that soon. Okay, the next one is, what happened to working with financial modelers to supply an easy to use budget justification for the NHS Trust hospitals to use, as stated, would happen. I think you've got a point there. I'm not entirely convinced that let's say we do have a model. Did we use it in the right way? Potentially not. Are we using something now? Yes. Are we engaged with the health innovation networks that are really tied in with us around that particular modeling? Because there's a big justification they need to do to be able to secure funds for us. So I think you have a good point in the fact that maybe we weren't, but we absolutely are now. We do have a model we can use, but to be honest with you, the work we're doing with the health innovation networks has really moved that on even further. And he's really supporting us in securing funding across the NHS. So, I'm really pleased with the work that's happened, but we'll continue to do that, and we'll continue to really show those justifications of those, the cost effectiveness of what we're doing. My apologies, I'm trying to read some of these questions. Sorry for the delay. So there's a question here saying, in regard to mtRNA1, I know the data on the effectiveness of the ID kit is good, but do GDR have a business case to be able to describe how this test might be an investment to save program? Cost improvement in any one NHS site? Yes, to be clear, we do. If you look at simply the NICE EVA evaluation, they did a cost effectiveness business case purely based on the provision of dual cochlear implants. So if you look at the evaluation, it sort of says that, you look at the number of tests that you have to do and the cost of those tests based upon the number of cochlear implants that would have to be provided. It's cost effective just on that simple scenario. What I like to build on is slightly a bit more than that when I talk to trusts and health innovation networks, because there is a wider cost. There's a wider implication cost for the social economic impact of trying to bring a child up with hearing loss or pre-speech hearing loss that never really got calculated into any of that piece that happened with NICE. So we have a broader element, not only from, on the business case, not purely and simply around the fact of invest and save. For a hospital point of view, is a wider social economic impact as well. There's also the fact that this test gives a result not only for the patient, but it also gives a result for the patient's mother and the patient's grandmother and subsequent siblings. Because the actual gene variation is passed down the mitochondrial DNA, you actually have a sort of bigger hit from the test result. So if you identify a child with this particular gene variation, you've pretty much identified the mother with the gene variation, as I said, and the grandmother and potential siblings for that. So you do get a wider impact. And that's something, again, that we're trying to build into the discussions that we're having. But ultimately, if you look at the NHS and you look at the financial situation it's in, even the tests that we do, aren't going to save the NHS hundreds of millions of pounds. It is millions of pounds this is going to save the NHS, but it's not hundreds of millions of pounds. So we are in a group of companies with a similar sort of saving impact. But where we have a really massive difference to someone coming along saying, if you do this, you'll save so many bed days. What we're doing is not only saying you're going to save costs, you're actually going to save hundreds of babies hearing, which is a patient safety, absolute great story. So I'm really convinced that we don't even only have to talk about the financials. We can talk about the patient impact as well. And patient safety is another area that I've very much been trying to engage with the NHS on. Because let's be honest, if they don't do this test, they are potentially causing harm. And we really need to make sure that they understand that there is an alternative to stop causing harm. But hopefully that's answered that one for you. Okay, question. Do you anticipate coming up against large path track providers and DNA sequencing providers, all of whom will insist they will be pursuing point of care testing in a clinical and applied market? Can you describe how much faster your tests are versus these path track approaches and a typical DNA sequencing approach? Okay. If we take mtRNR1, you can actually get that test done at the moment on the NHS in one of the genetic hubs. The current turnaround time for that test is somewhere between 1 and 2 weeks. And I do see some hospitals requesting that test for patients that are coming in for elective surgery. So automatically, I have an argument there to say that there is an inequality in service provision, because you're testing patients that are due to come in for elective surgery in 2 or 3 weeks' time, that they have the gene variant. But you're not testing patients that are in an emergency circumstance because you can't get the test done quick enough. So our test, as you know, for mtRNR1, it takes 26 minutes for the test to happen. If you take the time it takes to get the swab, and it's a very easy test, a couple of swabs in a baby's cheek, into an ELISA buffer, into the instrument, half an hour at tops, really is incredibly quick. And there is nothing else even close to it in the marketplace. Do I expect, other providers to come in? Let's be honest, there are already providers that are in these genetic hubs. The genetic hubs have a difficulty in the fact that there are few of them. They are difficult to staff, and they're quite expensive to run. So do I anticipate there being an impact on us in the short term? No. In the long term, there is always going to be challenges. There are always going to be people coming into the market. We're the first. I'm sure everybody will be waiting to see just how much we smash the market before they start thinking about entering. Let us do all the hard work, I know, but it's always good to be first. It's always good to be known as this particular provider, as the first one to really bring pharmacogenetic testing to that point of care arena. I really believe that that other people will come on board because they will see how we start to really develop this marketplace as we go forward. At the moment, no, I'm not worried. Let's talk about the CYP2C19 product. Again, that particular test can be done in a large genetic sequencing hub. It can also be done with one of our competitors' tests in a bit more of a, let's say, small lab scenario rather than a point of care scenario. Again, the tests take a bit of time to do. The competitor test that's in small labs is quite fiddly and complex, isn't really a point of care test. And as I said, you have to have frozen, you have to keep everything frozen to make it happen, which doesn't really work in a point of care scenario. Also, the competitor's test actually identifies very few of the particular targets. So to give an example, if you do a full sequencing, you'll identify 12 targets. If you do this competitor's test, you'll only identify 3 targets. If you do our test, you'll identify 6. And those 6 targets actually make up more or less 90% of the reasons why you can't metabolize the clopidogrel. So we have a massive advantage. And again, the test can be done in less than an hour, which is really important. And if you look at the UK and the models we've done in the UK, especially for Manchester, where we've modeled this out, they'd have to shift the test from whatever hospital they've got in that Greater Manchester area to the genetic hub. So there's a cost to taking the test, there's a cost of transporting the test, then there's cost of doing the test. Whereas we can actually have a particular instrument right next to the patient. As soon as the patient comes in, you can do the test and you can make the decision straight away on whether you give clopidogrel or not. Whereas you would have to wait for these tests. It could take, a day or 2 to come back with the result. So, there's a real benefit to us in the market. I hope that's answered the question. I'm not sure if there's many more. Let me have a quick look that I can go down and answer quickly. Okay. There's a question here that says, it's been said we will receive 0.2 million through the Devote funding process. We'll receive the full 1.2 million over the course of the next year. No, I don't think we will, in a nutshell. I don't think we'll get the full 1.2 million. I think we will get some more. Will it be the whole for 1.2? I'm not entirely, I don't believe it will be. There are other funding opportunities for us outside of Devote, which we're pursuing. So Devote isn't the only source of funding. There is other medtech funding capabilities and options for us. And as I said to you, by engaging with that Health Innovation Network, they also have access to funding as well, which we are accessing. So all I'd say to you is, okay, maybe not the 1.2 from Devote, but there are other funding opportunities out there we're pursuing as well. There's quite a lot of other questions. I'm not going to be able to have time to go through many more. I will try to answer as many, if not all of the questions later, so that you get a response to everything that you've put forward. I'm really keen to make sure that you feel engaged with us. Hopefully, this looks and feels very different to what you had with David previously. And I hope you can understand, it's been a short term that I've been here, but I really have got that commercial traction moving and really feel that there's a real positivity that probably wasn't in the organization prior. And I'm really looking forward to how that drives forward. So for me, I think that's probably as far as I can go for the questions for now.
That's great. Thank you for that, James. And for addressing those questions today. And of course, as James said, the company will review all questions submitted today and will publish those responses on the Investor Meet Company platform. But before we direct investors to provide you with their feedback, which I know is particularly important to the company, James, could I please ask you for a few closing comments?
I think I can understand the frustration, and I can see some of the questions, some of the frustration coming out, and where this company is going. Hopefully, I've given you a real clear steer on where I see the company going and on what I'm doing to drive things forward, and really starting to deliver on promises that were probably made a long time ago. Really starting to see some of the things come to fruition. I hope that you will, really genuinely get a feel that it's a different organization. I do want to interact with you as much as I can, and I will continue to do these kind of forums in the future, and give you every opportunity to press and push and make sure that I am as on it as I can be and driving it forward as I can be. I really think I have a great team around me with Russ and with Gino and the others within the organisation. They're a great R&D team. They've done some great things. I know we're going to do some more great things together. And now the focus is on that commercialization. I can really start to see some of the fruit and the fruition to come through. And I'd say just stay tuned. We've got some news coming out in the not too distant future, which we will share with you as soon as we can. And hopefully you can genuinely see where we're moving and the direction we're going in. So thank you for your time and asking the questions today.
Perfect. James, Russ, thank you once again for updating investors today. Could I please ask investors not to close this session, as you will now be automatically redirected to provide your feedback in order that the board can better understand your views and expectations. This will only take a few moments to complete, and I'm sure will be greatly valued by the company. On behalf of the management team of GENEDRIVE PLC, we would like to thank you for attending today's presentation, and good morning to you all.